We love finding the remote places, the hidden gems, those faraway destinations that so few people even dream of visiting. And over the years, we've found ourselves in some of the most idyllic places on this earth. But they don't come without risk. From Venezuelan drug lords to Pacific pirates, we've encountered them all, but rarely felt truly threatened. You wouldn't think that Gambier, a tiny speck of land deep in the South Pacific, would even feature on that list. With its incredibly friendly people and lush landscape, it's not what breaks the surface that causes our pulses to race, but the stories of what lies beneath.
We're on the move today. We are leaving the village of Ricotea. This is the mountain that we climbed the other day just behind me, and we are heading across to the other side of the lagoon here in the Gambier to the outer reef. I will be honest, people have told us not to go there because it is too dangerous. However, when has that ever stopped us before? You feel like we're getting back to the Tuamotus. We're leaving the mountains behind us. Had enough of these.
Had enough of these mountain things. They're too tall and hot and hard work to climb. No,
give me back my palm trees.
This is it. So we're going to head out. Did you say this already? We're going to head out to the outer reef of the Gambier, which quite often you can't get to because the weather won't allow it. Whereas we're actually quite lucky. There's a big blue patch hanging over the top of us right now, which is low wind. I think we're in the low, so it can have a bit more cloud around, but it means that basically the water is flat and the wind is like about 7 knots right now. So it's really, really good time for us to be able to get out there.
Yeah, so when we were up at the top of the mountain the other day, we could actually see the reef. So it's not that far away, but we could just see the whole outer reef going around the whole Gambier.
The hill was that high, we were in outer space. We were basically Google Earth. We could see the ends of the world.
We definitely didn't need a drone to get the view, but yeah, it just looked so stunning. We were like, hey, we have to go check that out.
Actually, I meant to ask this question. So that mountain is called Mount Duff.
Yeah.
And so the explorer that came here, Captain Duff, it was named after him. I've always felt like that means that when they arrived in their kind of big, tall ship, square-rigged sailboats, they would actually climb these mountains to get a view of the world. But I also know that in history, people are generally quite lazy. Do you think they actually climbed it? Or do you think they just went into the forest for a bit and then told everyone they climbed it?
Well, to be fair, on Moorea, Cook's Bay is called Cook's Bay because he sailed past it and looked at it one time, not because he went in and stayed there. So yeah, pretty much right.
He rode in one day, didn't he?
He didn't, yeah, he did.
But from the other bay.
Yeah, exactly.
Up in the Bay next door. Genius.
So yeah, history is all lies. That's what we're learning.
All lies! It does actually look quite steep from here. Like see that cliff face that just goes straight up?
It is actually straight up.
So it doesn't look like it's so much, but at the top it's like 5 feet wide. And we were standing on that ridge at the very top and you can just see the tree that the drone had to fight with. Just there.
Yeah, that was ridiculously impressive. Ian was flying the drone around the top and then, well, he forgot to pay attention. And
I was getting a very artistic shot of you looking all thoughtful over the sea.
It would have looked great if he hadn't flown it into a tree.
Well,
however, the tree is overhanging that massive cliff. So I heard the drone hit the tree, looked over and thought, we're going to lose the drone because it's going to fall out of the branches and just fall to its death 400 meters below. But I was like, well, if I scamper over quick enough and lean out over the cliff, I might be able to catch it as it falls out of the tree branches. But somehow, as it fell out of the tree, Ian regained balance and just flew it off again. So it lives to tell another tale, and I didn't fall off a cliff. Win-win.
It was a close call.
I don't know how well you can see this on camera, but the light stripes of the turquoise blue are where it is sandy and shallow, and then the darker water all around is either deep water or it's reef. In this case, there are a lot of reefs. It is getting quite shallow, and there's a really narrow point that we have to go through. So as much as we would love to sail across the lagoon, it's just not practical because there are so many obstacles that we have to weave our way between. There's reefs, and then there's also a whole ton of pearl farms around here. So there's pearl floats everywhere, and sailing through those would not be ideal. So it is a motor for this morning, I'm afraid.
42 meters deep here.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be 5-ish.
Here we go.
Eek.
It's a little bit harder to see because of the cloud cover today, but this is where satellite maps come in so necessary so that we can see exactly what we're trying to avoid in the water.
I mean, you have to love it because Zora just stays there going, blue, you've got nothing to worry about. If it goes yellow, maybe I'll pay attention. It was only the other day when we were anchoring and it went red in the zone back on that island. I got really nervous. All right, quiz time. You have correctly seen that there is a yellow and black stripy pole marker just up there.
Which I generally think is something to avoid.
Generally bad news, like bumblebees. Now, it has 2 downwards pointing arrows. Any guesses what that means?
I think that means that the reef or whatever is marking is to the south of it. And if the 2 arrows are pointing up, the hazard is to the north. It's just I can never remember east and west when they're both pointing to each other or both pointing up and down.
So if they make a diamond, like an hourglass shape out of the arrows, that's kind of zigzaggy like a W. So
they're all
would be west.
zigzaggy like a W. Squint your head and it looks like a W.
So we actually know the answer to this, but if you would like to play the game, let us know in the comments what you think a yellow and black stripy marker with 2 arrows pointing down means. Now, a bunch of you are really seasoned sailors and are going to be like, obviously, it means the bar is that way. But for those of you who aren't, or those of you who want to double check and brush up, don't cheat, don't Google.
And let us know really quickly because we're approaching it quite fast.
We're gonna get wet. We haven't installed these rain curtains yet. And this is what we have to do every time we see a cloud coming. Come on, there. All right, you stay outside.
Yes.
Corner, quick.
It's about to get heavy.
Freddie's getting quite wet, but I'm inside, so all's good. How you getting on out there?
I'm getting tired down, so I'm just gonna crouch under the...
All right.
Woo!
Well done. So a little bit of blind navigation to go on now. Good job. We were just quizzing our chart work. This is how much you can see when it rains. Of course, after all that, we realized we actually misread the marker. So it wasn't 2 triangles, whatever I said, pointing downwards. It was actually 2 triangles pointing toward each other. So if you've already answered and you got it wrong, you can answer again. Otherwise, we'll probably give the answer later on or something. I don't know.
And I was just wondering why they bothered to mark that bit of reef and not any of the others, because there are so many coral bobbies around. But now I have spotted a massive coral farm the other side of the marker. So good job, we came the right side of it, and we're not gonna kind of kill someone's livelihood by ruining all of their pearl floats. Well, the rain lasted about 5 seconds and now we are back to blazing sunshine again. So this is far more like it. But I just cannot get over how beautiful these islands are. Like, I don't think I have stopped smiling since we arrived. It really feels like we have sailed to the absolute end of the earth. I don't know a single person who had been here before we came. I don't even know if I know of anyone who had heard of this place before we came here. And now we just get to sail around on our own boat and call this home for a little while. Like, it is just absolutely unreal. And everywhere I look, there is something even more beautiful that I haven't seen yet. So it's almost to the point where I think I can say the journey here was worth it. With all of the things that we went through, and we finally made it. This is why we fought for weeks and weeks and weeks to fix our sailboat to be able to get here, because look at this, it's absolutely stunning.
You want to know something else that might make you smile?
Yeah, I want to know.
I hope it's kind of out of date, and we never really do this in videos, but right now we have 11,945 subscribers.
Ooh.
And we set ourselves a bit of a goal that by the end of January, and this is now the something of January.
22nd of January
something
now?
like that. It's January 20-something, that we would try and get to February 1st, we would have made it to 12,000 subscribers, and we are this close.
Oh my goodness.
Hopefully we made it. If we didn't, you'll be able to see right now somewhere on this video that we didn't, and then maybe if you're generous enough, you might just, pity subscribe. Like a shameful click of the button to just like, go on, give them a bone. It costs nothing, of course. It's one of these things that does just really help the channel reach new people and hopefully share this stuff with even more of you out there. So if you haven't ever considered hitting subscribe, and you may have not had to, maybe YouTube's just giving you our videos to show anyway, just one little button. It won't harm you, I promise. Just, that's all it takes.
So you might be able to see in the background, there's basically like a sandbar that joins this island all the way out to the reef at the edge. It gets incredibly shallow up there, like 1 meter, and we're going to try and anchor there. So hopefully we won't get too shallow and run aground. I think we can just about sneak on the edge. As long as there's no coral bommies, we should be okay. We should have enough space to swing around, but it'll be pretty. Well, I'll take that view. That is absolutely stunning.
This color is insane, isn't it? It's like when you say turquoise waters, and I don't know, maybe our sunglasses are changing it slightly, but not that much. It's insane. We're in total we're in 5 meters of water, 3 meters below our keel, so 9 feet underneath the boat.
Which is more than I thought we were gonna have.
I know, I really honestly thought we were gonna be like skimming the sand.
Yeah.
But it's just this huge apron of turquoise, it's great.
But you get like this turquoise water and then it like deepens out to the darker blue with like a mountain range behind it. It's just absolutely incredible.
So a bunch of you are probably questioning, what's the big deal? Why are we saying that people told us not to come here when clearly we have found paradise on Earth? And we decided to come onto the motu, onto the island that we were just anchored in front of, so that we can go and show you something a little bit different.
I'm gonna guess that you can't see anything on camera, but I just turned around and there's a stick floating in midair.
Seriously, 0G Island.
I have just seen the single string of spider's web that goes all the way up to the top of the tree, which I obviously did know was there. Didn't actually think it was magic.
Presumably it goes all the way to the ground as well.
Well, I walked to this side of it and a spider didn't attack me, so I think you're safe. So there's this like really wide, flat trail, which is very shaded under all these trees, which is quite nice in the heat of the day. And it goes all the way down to the false pass. So when we arrived in Gambia, you saw that we didn't really have to come through a pass. We definitely didn't have to think about currents and tides and things. This is one of the only passes into the atoll, but it's actually too shallow to bring your totally just walked through a spider's web. It's too shallow to bring your boat in, but you can get through in a dinghy, which means that you have loads of incoming current, and that is really good for visibility and for sea life.
Yeah, and actually that makes it kind of the best place to go snorkeling and freediving in the whole of Gambia. Well, at least it was until around 2 years ago. You're making friends.
There are so many hermit crabs here. Like this is quite a little one, but we've seen like massive groups of them all hanging out, and maybe they're doing that thing where they like swap shells and they all go up a level and get a promotion to a bigger house.
Always sounds so amicable, but I have a feeling it really isn't.
It's like a big royal rumble where they just all fight it out.
I mean, I do just have to point out how weird it is that we are on a coral atoll, right? It's just like all the other ones we've been to in the past. It is just coral that has been built up over time around the outside of a mountain that has since collapsed and disappeared. And yet this one is like a full-blown pine forest. It's so weird.
It feels a bit like Narnia. It's
Have
like
we gone through the door yet?
We should be in the middle of summer right now, but we're surrounded by winter with all these pine trees.
And then, I don't know where, a palm tree. Oh, of course.
Just to root you back in the South Pacific
Just
again.
to remind you where you are. This is like the main road on this island. I'm getting the impression it doesn't get used all that often.
Well, what started out as a very well-marked path has now completely stopped, but we're determined to get all the way to the pass because I want to see the sea. So we're now just back in thick jungle and feel like we're going in circles.
I mean, in fairness, you did just say to me you don't remember if this path ever actually gets to the false path.
Yeah, no idea. That was just hopeful thinking on my part.
Excellent. Briny Heck number 473? No, 479. This is the way, right?
No idea. There's lots of spiders.
Maybe there's another way.
Look, wonderful path for at least 4 meters. we can see glimpses of the past. So I think we must be nearly there. Hopefully we can get all the way. But the reason that this is such a scary place to come and freedive is that because in the last 2 years, there have been 2 shark attacks where a large grey shark has bitten somebody on the arm pretty severely. And those people have had to be medevaced all the way to Tahiti. There are very, very limited medical services here. We are really on the edge of the world. And yeah, whether it's the same shark that's doing it both times, I don't know. But either way, shark attacks known in the area that you want to go freediving is not really something that's going to entice you into the water.
But this view is, look at this.
Wow.
That's amazing. This is one of these things where the camera's probably not picking up the colors, but it is a brilliant color water. All right, I think we've kind of explained this a little bit in the past, but this is a pass. That is inside a lagoon. That's the Gambia. And then on this side, it goes from being like 1-2 foot deep to 4,000, 8,000 feet deep. It just goes straight down to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. And it's usually a wall. It's like the side of a mountain that has just gone straight down to the bottom of the sea. And what happens is all of the big stuff, the hammerheads, the gray reefs, the oceanics, the whales, the manta rays, the whale sharks, all of that stuff cruise along the edges of these cliffs, basically looking for things to eat. And passes like this are kind of like the McDonald's of the sea, because when the tide is rushing out, all the fish in the lagoon that usually are smaller and meatier and juicier end up getting pulled out into the open ocean, and the sharks have a frenzy. And then when the tide turns, anything that's fresh out there, like new plankton, some of the smaller fish that live out on the reef get drifted in and end up living in the lagoons. So it's kind of an exciting place to go diving, because you go off the side of here, and from 1 foot to thousands of feet, you suddenly find yourself surrounded with hammerheads and grey reefs and oceanic sharks, and it just becomes very exciting. So I really want to dive it. I don't care about the whole shark attack thing. I figure that I can be friends with sharks. Can we dive it?
So this is our dilemma. It's like, how can we sail 1,500 miles upwind over 7 weeks and have a hellish journey to get here, arrive at this incredible dive site, and then not even look at it? So
I mean, it's the best place in the whole of Gambia.
Exactly, right? It's kind of dumb, but I think we're gonna go for a swim.
We'll pick our time.
I figure we'll dive with the dinghy, and I'll just stay near the dinghy, and if I see a shark and I get scared, I'll just hop out and I'll leave you for lunch. You can swim faster than me anyway.
If we cover you in fish guts, then I'll be safe.
I can see why they say this is the best snorkeling in the Gambia. We haven't even got in the water and the colours are just wild here. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm getting so nervous now. Like, we have dived with 700 sharks in Fakarava, but still, if you know there has been not just 1 attack, but 2 attacks here in this exact location, it makes you a little bit on edge. So you can go first. Don't get eaten.
It's so clear. Falling into just crystal.
It isn't hard to see how this reef got its reputation for the best freediving in the whole of the Gambia. The vibrant corals and plentiful fish life really shows how untouched this part of the world is. And with most of the sea life having never seen a human before, they were happily swimming right up to our masks. In a lagoon pass like this, with all kinds of fish living in the currents, you'll often find a popular spot for spearfishing. But ciguatera is rife here, a toxin in these reef fish that is known to cause muscle pain and sickness in humans. And so these beautiful creatures are left alone to enjoy their underwater world without many guests. And anyone who does venture this far knows the high risks of swimming in these waters. And so, with our heads on a swivel, we were keeping our eyes peeled for any intimidating visitors. And it wasn't long before they started to show up. These sleeping nurse sharks didn't pose too much of a threat, and while we didn't want to interrupt their rest, we couldn't resist diving down for a closer look. They are nocturnal, so it's unlikely they would get up to much during the day, but it always pays to be careful. And as more and more black-tip reef sharks turned up, we started to lose track of the nurse sharks we had left sleeping on the sand.
My goodness.
That was so much fun. I mean, it was fine seeing the two sleeping nurse sharks, but when you pointed out one had woken up and disappeared, it's like...
And we couldn't see it.
I mean, and to be fair, nurse sharks are like friendly. All sharks are friendly, but nurse sharks are really, really friendly. But then to see in the end, I think we saw sort of 3 of them all awake, all cruising around the reef and like scanning. That's very cool.
Yeah, and then like 4 black tips all turned up at the same time, suddenly like all coming out of the lagoon. I guess it was lunchtime for them. So I was like, I think now might be the time to get back in the dinghy. It was slightly alarming.
It's funny because when you look at it, that was like a fishing spa, I suppose. So you have these areas around the ocean that are like cleaning stations, and certain types of fish will arrive and little cleaning rats will come and scrub their scales and keep them all fresh and healthy. But I think between the spa section, which is kind of over here, and then in the middle, I think all those tiny little jellyfish that were everywhere were causing like a little feed frenzy of the larger fish.
Yeah, they were all congregating.
And the unicorn fish and all that. And so, yeah, obviously there's a bit of a stir, and that draws in a couple of sharks to find their own golden plunge.
Yeah, right.
It's so sad for the fish.
I'd rather them than me.
How many fingers? How many toes? Quick check.
I've only got 9.
It's all right for you. I have an open wound.